So as I took a couple of weeks off from doing YouTube videos, there was a lot that happened that I want to respond to. I've got another video on Rededicate 250 that I'm going to respond to either this week or next week. But I wanted to be able to touch on this, even though it's a little bit late, because I do feel like it's important, especially our response as Christians, as believers. I want to take a look at a couple of clips from an interview that Andrew from Channel 5, if you haven't been familiar with Channel 5 on YouTube, this guy is one of the best interviewers I have ever seen. I've reacted to the Shia LaBeouf interview. I reacted, I think, to the clavicular interview. I just think that he frames questions and frames the content in such a way that he gets good responses out of the people that he talks to. And so I want to take a look at him interviewing anonymously. He interviewed ICE agents about kind of what their role is, what they have seen as they've been working on the inside. I think so many times we look at narratives and we look at what we think are right and wrong, but we actually can speak out of ignorance a lot of times. And so I want to take it from the horse's mouth, right? Hearing from these guys or girls. I don't know. I assume they're all guys, but I want to take a look at that and then talk about our response as Christians to these things and to take a look at that. So the first clip I want to show you is from one of the agents who talks about Alex Preddy and talks about Renee Good in Minneapolis and what happened and kind of their perspective of this, because I think it's different than what we've seen from the media, what we've seen on social media. Let's go ahead and take a look at this clip.
Alex Preddy, when he was shot, his hands were on the ground. He did not have a firearm in his hand. Border Patrol should not have been there. Border Patrol should be patrolling the border.
I feel like our administration wanted this type of escalation. I don't think Renee Good deserved to be killed. We sometimes feel like they're waiting for one of us to be shot and killed.
What did you think about the Alex Preddy shooting?
That one was also particularly traumatic.
Was Renee Good a criminal? No. Was she acting like a bitch? Yeah.
How do you feel about the phrase ICE?
I try not to take it personally.
Your family, your kids, nigga. That's how it is. I can't sleep comfortably because of you.
I just feel like we've been in the pocket of the administration, kind of doing their bidding and wrapping up as many people as possible.
We've been mislabeled as Nazis, homophobes, as racist in law enforcement. That's just not true.
They're doing exactly what the Gestapo did back in the Nazi regime.
We are not deportation officers, and we are not people who go out and grab people, round them up, and then deport them. That is not what we do.
Unnecessary violence has been happening since the Metro surges began, and HSI had to back up investigations of assaults against officers where there was no assault, and they started it.
I think what's so interesting about this is the fact that they talk about these things as being traumatic, that they're not right, that, you know, he even says, one of the guys says, you know, we feel like we're in the back pocket of the administration just kind of doing their bidding. I think that's something that we haven't seen from the media narrative about ICE, and I think it should stop us to be able to go, man, you know, these are real people who are on both sides of these issues, and not saying that people are justified in doing things that are illegal or immoral and those kind of stuff. But I do think that we have to slow down enough from the narratives to say, hey, what's really happening here? And to be able to look at the responses that we have as Christians and what we're celebrating or what we feel like is right, and be able to sit back and go, is this really reflective of, especially if we're a Christian, which is who I'm majority of the time, that's who I'm relating to or to who I'm talking to. I'm looking at this and going, man, is this really reflective of the heart of God? And if it's not, man, then how do we get closer to that point? And so I think like you just see that it's a little bit trickier than what the narrative wants to be in social media or, you know, mainstream kind of media. I want to take a look at this particularly because I think it puts Christians in a camp where, you know, traditionally there's a strong stance on immigration, but then there's also a strong stance on this issue that they're going to talk about being affected directly because of what the reorientation of the ICE and the departments within ICE are doing. I want to go ahead and take a look at this clip right here.
Since Trump got into office, there's been 33% less federal agent hours spent pursuing child predators than there was beforehand. Have there been child exploitation cases that have been basically thrown out as a result of moving HSI manpower over to places like Minneapolis to enforce immigration?
There have absolutely been leads that have been uninvestigated or closed out prematurely because we don't have the manpower or the priority to focus on that.
The immigration enforcement and now our criminal enforcement, that's all merged. It makes our job a lot more difficult.
It definitely feels like my purpose has been destroyed. I have no doubt that the American people have lost their faith in us. I lost our faith in us.
Wow. The American people have lost their faith in us, and I have lost our faith in us. I mean, I just don't think this is what you're seeing people talk about when they talk about ICE and when they talk about the atrocities that are happening and all these things. Like, I don't think they're understanding that these people didn't necessarily get into these departments to do the things that are being done, and they don't necessarily agree with what's being done. And again, regardless of where you feel about the issue of immigration, I think we all can see that child exploitation, sex trafficking, different things like that are massively important issues, especially like there are so many non-Christians, non-spiritual people who recognize that this needs to be fixed, right? And so when you're taking resources away from that, and when you're actually downplaying some of these things that you could be doing the work in, well, now you have this problem where the people who got into law enforcement for these reasons, to make their communities better, now they don't really have the opportunity to do that because they're stuck doing other things. And so I want to go ahead and show you one last clip. Okay, one last clip here, because they talk about having regrets and if they've considered quitting. I want to take a look at this and just react to it, and then I'll give you my final thoughts after it.
Do you have any colleagues who've quit?
Yes. I have colleagues who have changed agencies. I have colleagues who've quit altogether.
Have you considered quitting?
I have.
I stay here in this job and keep doing my job because someone has to do it. When this particular pendulum swings back, there has to be good agents, good AUSAs, good whatever left to do the work.
I have considered quitting multiple times. However, I am extremely passionate about protecting our children.
And after all of this, do you ever regret joining?
Same answer I gave when I left my police department. Like, I never regret being in law enforcement because I've been blessed to actually help save lives. I've handled child abuse cases. I've gotten very bad people off the street. And that's kind of like the goal as a police officer, is like really getting bad people off the streets that harm our community. So I will never regret joining it because like at the end of the day, I help people be where they are today. And if it wasn't for me, they might not even be here still.
Man, I think that this is such a key thing for us to realize and recognize that, man, not everybody is a news story. Not everybody is a headline. That these are real people, and they're really struggling with some of the things that they're doing. I think we need to be able to have grace for people. I think we need to be able to not get so caught up in the headlines. I think we have to be able to realize that, man, we should pray for those who are in law enforcement, pray for first responders, pray for ICE even, because these are guys that have gotten in to make their communities better. At least there are some that are, right? And if you're in a spot where you're watching this and you're like, well, nobody in ICE is good, or they're all compliant, or all of this stuff, well, that's just not true, because you're seeing at least 3 people who have, spoken out about this thing and said, I don't feel like this is right. And so I think we have to just slow down as believers. I think we have to slow down as Christians, realize what is actually being done, and realize and recognize within our own heart to take inventory and say what's really important. Is going to various places and rounding up immigrants really worth losing resources to protect our children? Both things are important, and I agree that both things should be enforced by the law. But at the same time, it's like being able to not just pick up a flag and promote and celebrate what we feel like is good, because there's always going to be a trade-off somewhere. And I think that that's one of the things that I took away from the full interview, was that, man, there's so much being traded off for rounding up and gathering and deporting immigrants on a massive scale like it is. And honestly, I would look for our administration, President Trump, and those who are in his cabinet to be able to talk about this. Why can we not get more funding for the child protection for abuse cases? Why are we not funding that? Why are we not looking at that? Why are we pulling resources to do some of the things that we're doing with immigration? immigration. Again, I have a stance on immigration that I believe is strong and true. Don't break the law, come here legally, like all of the things. But at the same time, I think it's just a reminder to slow down, to really assess what we think and what we believe, and then to be able to pray for those who are in those places of authority. Pray for police officers, pray for law enforcement, pray for ICE, pray for our first responders. I think that's the big thing in this. Don't get caught up in the headlines. Don't get caught up in the narrative that people want to try to get us caught in. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts on this. Did you see the interview? What did you think of it? Can't wait to see you in the next video. God bless.